First of all, I just want to say what an incredibly inspiring like presentation, and just I just to see like everything you've done as like it's incredible just as a community, and as like everyone contributing different things, and it's just I'm just trying to think of how are ways as a broader community. Here, so I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, but the unceded territories of the Mi'kmaq people here, and I'm just trying to think of what are the lessons that we can learn and we can maybe bring back here. I guess like question I have for you, Chief, is I guess on the financial side, and you mentioned that to incorporate some of these projects is like there's a lot of like the funding takes time, and so I'm just kind of interested in knowing like how have to get started. And I know especially as a youth, it's often hard. Like you have these ideas, but then some, especially if they're bigger ideas, getting something started from a financial side is often difficult. And what kind of advice do you have for folks want to incorporate these kind of larger projects on that side of things? How do you go about that process?
Easy. Facebook bingos. No, first and foremost is if people don't understand the why, okay? So there's a TED Talk speaker, somebody introduced me a few years ago. He says, you sound similar to what Simon Sinek says. I didn't know what the hell he was. If people believe in the why, then they will make the priority. First thing you need to do is identify what you want to do. You do the costing of that thing, and then say, well, how are we going to pay for it? Okay. In British Columbia, every community has own source revenues. Make no mistake. Whether it is an ECTA with a mine, whether it is a clean energy grant from the province or gaming revenues grant. What the problem is, they haven't prioritized the need. If they don't understand the why, they will continue to advance Walmart's or Tim Hortons. I just told you a simple solar project is 14,000. You tell me one band or municipality or family that can't afford that. I was able to secure funding from the Bank of Montreal at 3% financing. The payback period is 17 years for the smaller projects. Borrow the money. It's easy. You get an asset for the next 100 years. You just have to pay for it for the first 10. But everybody thinks about opportunity cost. Oh, but I could make more money with the Tim Hortons. Okay. So yeah, it's a hurdle. Next thing, as I said here, is be honest. People want to do other things. Climate change isn't real. You need to continue hammering away, and you must persevere. You must persevere when you have this conversation. No, that stuff's important. But if we don't make these physiological investments first, we can't have that tomorrow. A Tim Hortons won't exist without water. A Tim Hortons can't run without power. So always just, I don't necessarily know how to have the conversation because everybody's on side at Kanaka Bar with the 6 physiologicals and the logical flow. It's called a waterfall. 1 begets 2. 1 + 2 begets 3. But there's so many people trying to build 3, 4, and 5 without the foundations. So that's your challenge, is convincing people on the why. The business case is weak. Have a look at that presentation, but it does exist. You're not generating profit, but you're reducing operating costs to 0. And you can stay open in a bad day. That's a cool idea. There are loads of grants not out there. And I'm going to be honest with you. I've put my name into grants, and it's not the easiest thing. Because trying to put Kanaka Bar square peg into funder holes, oh my God, you're going to go bald. No, that's a byproduct of solar and wind. There's a lot here at Kanaka Bar, or genetics, not sure. It's really hard to navigate all the grants and the funders that are out there. Kanaka Bar's biggest disadvantage is by the time we get approved by a funder, we've already finished the project and we're no longer eligible. But I will paint something near the end of the year as long as you're willing to go back for the fiscal. So continue to understand the funders that are out there. People like Fraser Basin Council, Minister of Energy provincially, and I'm really weak on the federal grants. I really am. But there's another situation is approach the main corporations in your area. Philanthropy exists. Remember TRCC number 92? Corporations want to do the right thing. We call upon the corporate sector in Canada to adopt UNDRIP. Just pick something small. Highland Valley gave us $20,000, if I'm not mistaken, to advance food self-sufficiency. Do you know how we got that money? We asked. Don't be afraid to ask. The worst they might say is yes, and then you'll have to do the 4-letter word called WORK. So are you prepared to do the work?
Thanks so much, Chief.
Anybody else? Come on, bring it. Who wants to be next?
Hi, my name's Kate. I'm an elementary teacher on the lands of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations. And I do some eco and social justice education. I'm very passionate about those areas. And I would love to hear more about how you view youth empowerment, because when you spoke about the idea that, you know, some people are going to put their heads in the sand, but you refuse to, I really thought, you know, if there are youth out there who feel like there's nothing that we can do and the adults in our society are not doing what they're responsible for, you know, that's something that is hard to live with as an adult. You don't want to let youth know that we're just giving up and we're not doing what we need to do. So I really appreciate your perspective on that. And I would love to hear more about how you really uplift youth, give them hope, and make them feel empowered.
I think I'm going to encourage you there. I did that youth presentation I did for the elementary school is online. So you'll just have to grind through the presentation section. For the purpose of if your edification and sharing is just show the kids the youth video that I've linked into. This is the kids. Remember, the kids update the website. The kids produce the videos. Always remember. So, well, okay, in 1973, the underlying theory was Indians don't do stuff like that. That's a learned behavior. Apathy, burying your head in the sand, that's a learned behavior. It's basically kind of like bordering on lazy. So in our language, and it's the worst word I know, it's called nauza. It means lazy Indian. Okay? There's a lot of people who want to ride the pine. Somebody else will take care of business. How do we empower them? Well, you show success stories. You show people of your generation and younger generation. Also, use my website. You know, try to find the success stories that are out there. Now, I'll give you an example. School district from Surrey showed up last year, and about 75 kids of all nationalities, they're all British Columbians, all Canadians, get out, and they said they're looking for the reserve. We were on the internet. We heard life on the reserve is really tough. Life in Surrey is tough, but life on the reserve is tougher. So they kept asking me, where's the reserve? And I said, you're on it. Do you believe everything you read on Facebook? For Christ's sake, give them some truth, give them some success, empower them, let them make mistakes. Isn't that how we learn? When I talked about those stories that are woven throughout my entire website and taught to my grandparents, she never actually told me how to do something. She said, this is what you should do, go forth. So for example, I remember asking her, is it okay to eat this worm? And she said, yes. Then my tummy felt funny. Then she said, you probably won't eat earthworms anymore, will you? And to this day, I've never eaten earthworms, and I've avoided goldfish too, despite the fact I thought it might have been a good idea. I haven't taken the cinnamon challenge, right? I'm just saying, we all know, but how do we believe in ourselves? You continue to restate that power of choice, that it is your future. Nobody forces you to drink. Nobody forces you to put that up your nose. Nobody forces you to put that in your arm. The problem is, once you start down that path, it gets harder and harder and harder to get back to that power of choice. So when I consistently talk about life and choice, that's the message. Most of those kids you'll see in the videos often say, has it given you the choices speech yet? So it's not going to be easy, but find the success stories. And that's why my community gave me the mandate to share as broadly as we do, so that we hopefully can inspire individuals of regardless of age.
Well, I'm really impressed with your tenacity to get your community moving. But I find that my concern was about climate change probably 15 years ago. Brought it to a band meeting, community meeting, to chief and council were present, but they ignored me. They did not believe that climate change was happening. So Lily, I think we need to do more youth programs and let's empower the youth to use their voice to make change. Because I find that the adults are not interested in climate change in our community. No matter how many times you bring it up, there's no interest in thinking forward to preserve our community. We have a Bull River running through our river, through our reserve. My family, we go out boating, so we pick up all the debris along the river, all the garbage, you know, tires, you wouldn't believe what was on the sides of the river. So we do that. But now all my children are gone, so I don't know who I'm gonna have to get other children to come out with me and look at the river and see what's happening with people just throwing things into the river and contaminating the river. So anyway, so I'm just thinking that we need to use our youth as the voice to make change. So thank you very much for your inspiring presentation.
I wanted to respond to that. I don't know if I've done this correct. I've hit return there. Here's the youth presentation. So when I reached out to the youth, and I'm just going to slide through it, all I did was put pictures of youth in. Now, for example, I was asking a whole bunch of high school kids, what did Jack do to save his girlfriend in the movie Titanic? You know what those kids did? What the hell show are you talking about? He put his lady on the boat and he died. What did he value? They didn't know what the hell I was talking about, but they knew who Leonardo DiCaprio was. And Leonardo DiCaprio has said climate change is real and we can do something about it. You look down here, Barack Obama, I attributed a quote to him. It's actually from one of his governors. We're the first generation to experience China climate change, and we're the last generation that can do something about it. Okay? And that's not the youth. They're inheriting our mess. So I put into that presentation a lot of do. What you say or do matters. The message has always been the same. So please take a chance to go down there and just scroll down here because there's some really funny stuff in there. I have that sense of humor. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, President Greta Thunberg, there it is, Federal Minister Catherine McKenna and Provincial Minister George Heyman. And I actually have a thing where Minister Heyman is throwing a cream pie at Federal Minister Catherine McKenna because I did this before she made the decision. Humor. Yes, leadership aren't going to listen. And I think that a lot of times because leadership are scared, we're all punching above our weight class. I don't know, but if my membership find out I don't know, they're going to vote me out. There's also, I hate to say it. Now, Darlene, my band's financial statements have been online for 20 years. Is your communities?
No.
Right? So what happens here, we govern through fairness, consistency, transparency, and honesty. Again, it's a nefarious part of being Indigenous. Not everybody's in leadership and management for the right reasons. And if we actually shift away, won't be conflict of interest or losses of opportunities for them self-dealing? I get it. There's a lot of reasons that leadership might not make the change. But if the people express the voice. Now, Greta has sat down. You remember 2 years ago, she was on the thing. I mean, all you have to think about it. What's her name? Severn Cullis Suzuki in 1992. She said, climate change is real and you need to do something about it. What did we do? Jack squat. Greta comes in and everybody says, oh, she's amazing. What have we done? Jack squat. The point here is we're trying. We have to get to your MLA and your MP, bring them to your community, show them these stories, these funny little stories about, right, the things that are out there, and it's there. Look out your window. For example, Darlene, have you read the report from approximately 4 months ago that says the glaciers that feed the Bull River will be gone in about 20 years and the Bull River will flow no more? Are you going to wait till it's dry? Then you just let the science. If you can't dazzle them with your smile and your good looks, right? Hit them over the head with science. UBC, probably Sarah's out at UBC. She can find that report and email it to your chief and council. Says, if you don't believe me, do you believe the scientists? Look at the IPC reports. Over here on my left, you see Sean O'Rourke over here. Give us a wave, Sean. He's there in my gallery. Sean, we hired a cumulative effects coordinator. Sean is here. He's here to mentor our youth. So we've been just doing stuff by the seat of our pants. Sean started last month. He's developing an entire cumulative effects harm reduction or harm reversal strategy. Bringing young men and women to mentor the young men and women, people with academics, people with experience, people who don't have an angry heart or a poisoned mind, who are not predators. Change the people you meet. If your leadership won't listen, can you change your leadership? I'm only on the hook for 30 days. I don't know how it works, but you need to be able to get people out to vote and empower the people. Youth are often too young to vote. But in this presentation, I said, but you could bring people to vote. All we have to do is look at the voter turnouts nationally or US or BC. People aren't voting. If you want change, you need to do something and at least vote. Get a Green Party member in for your riding. I can just picture Bull River represented by Green Party candidate, insert name here. It'll be powerless, but it'll be quite the statement that we're not addicted to pipelines in Calgary, wherever, Edmonton. And I like to bash a little bit on Alberta's, just because, I mean, there's a lot of people who think that that pipeline is really important. And I'm just saying, you guys know we're opposed to it. It's all we do is advocate. You don't have to be sensational. You don't have to draw it an F-bomb. You don't have to be hugely animated, right? Have a group of people like this. Reach out to people like David Suzuki Foundation, to Lily's group or Fraser Basin Council. Find good people who believe in that and just continue to build that wave of good people. We get it, but we need to start working as a collective. Individually, the 49 participants in the thing were not very strong, but if 50 people said the same message, it's a little stronger. What about 500 people? What about 5,000 people? Right? Everybody has LinkedIn and Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts. Why don't you share it there? You guys need to go on my YouTube channel. I was attacked 5 minutes after we put up why we said no. Somebody with a picture of Trudeau said, you're too stupid to understand. You know what? It's very easy. The gift of life and the power of choice. I refuse to have an adverse reaction to other people's negativity. The issue isn't mine, it's theirs. We use common sense, transparency, honesty, and reason. That is how we continue to dance forward. We know that other people are not, but at least we're hoping that something what's known as the adoption curve, if we're an early adopter, early innovator, that then people can say, hey, look, if they've got 12 operating solar projects, why don't you? Like there's a story on APTN we're on. I reviewed a video yesterday. There's about 4 communities that are putting out another video, and when it's released, we'll make sure that's also shared. We share all of our stuff is shared to AFN and United BC Chiefs. I championed the climate change resolution at the last AFN meeting. I participate as often as I can in the Union of BC Indian Chiefs meeting. They have a young man, I think his name is Josh. Patricia's with BC AFN. Established the relationships with the entities that govern you, because they take it seriously. AFN takes climate change seriously. My Union of BC Chiefs takes it seriously. So start getting those in here. We might not be able to control mayors or chief and councils and stuff like that, because I don't want to go into my future with anger and resentment. And I don't want to move into with a shame-based thing either. Shame is really hard in my community. We're always shaming each other to keep us down. In Calvin Helene's book, he wrote about the Indian crab story. So it's called a book called Dances with Dependencies. Have a look at that. When he and I knew each other way back when, right? He wrote that book, because as long as you're dependent on somebody else, you're vulnerable. So self-determination, self-powerment, all those words that sometimes that confuse them all up. That's again all up to you. So, just have a look at the resources, work together, but you get up, because like I said, we don't have, for example, is anybody here ever been called anti-awesome? If you don't have your own kids, you probably know somebody with kids. So then get your passion from saying, I'm going to make sure little sister Susie who lives down the block has a future. I wasn't planning to bring any kids into the world myself because I'm concerned about climate change, but I'll do something for little Susie. Find your inspiration somewhere. You know, just don't use me as your poster child. Trust me, too many F-bombs and too many weird analogies. And I'm going, I thought you were going to rebuke me for that, the number of times I cursed. So thank you, darling.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think the youth are our future. They listen, you know, did a workshop, thanks to Lily, you know, to teach children how to be self-sufficient by drying meat, right?
Yeah.
So we did the workshop, and at the end, they said that this was the best experience they ever had, learning hands-on rather than learning from a book or from somebody telling them, right? So I think we have to do hands-on learning like you have, you know, going out into the land and showing them what's happening to our community. And maybe they'll be inspired to start doing things as youth groups. There are a lot of youth who are awesome and motivated, but there's not enough of them. And that's maybe when they start, then the rest will start with that chain event. But it is difficult in our community. As you know, in some territories, women are not valued. And it's true at Siksika. So to raise my voice and to bring things always to the forefront, there are attacks, you know, that I'm a woman, don't know anything. You should go back into where you belong and stuff. So it's a real battle to be, to let your voice be heard and your concerns. But I still do.
If our governments fail us, there is a way to attack our federal and provincial governments under a fiduciary. For those people who can find it, I articulated a long letter, which was a hint. We can take a class action suit against the government for breach of fiduciary responsibility. I have a legal and moral responsibility to manage my land for future generations. Does not Trudeau? Does not everybody else's mayor? Yes, there are forces that want him to do the same old, same old. Then if they won't make the decision, you have to change them. You could potentially impeach your MEP and MLA. For example, I'm represented by the Conservative Party. Brad Weiss has changed the whole way of living here. Do you know what a federal MP and a baby pigeon have in common? We both know they exist. We've just never seen one. But Brad Weiss got elected and he's been up here twice now. Jesus, you ruined one of my stories, Brad. It's a shame that you're with the Conservative Party who have a very weak climate change platform. Have you thought about working with your group to change that? Because climate change is real. So advocate every chance you get. Share. Be passionate. Be crazy. Be honest. Be real. What are the alternatives? I've just told you there is an environment and an economy of tomorrow that is probably not going to be dependent on fossil fuel. So why are we continuing to perpetuate fossil fuel? Because there's a few angry voices in a few of our regions who insist that coal and bitumen are the way forward for all of us. I have no idea how to combat that type of articulation, right? I am not a lobbyist, right? Minister Heyman gave me an opportunity to speak on November 5th of last year. I think it was November 5th. And as I was sitting beside him, I said, George, you know what I'm going to say? Neither do I. I just get basically lambasted. It's like Chief Dan George in 1967. You sit down there and you smile and nod sagely. And then when you get the microphone, they're not like, it wasn't like they're going to turn it off. Just give it to them. Smile and thank you. And then what they'll say is, thank you, sir, can have another. Right? I'm just saying it exists. Every opportunity to advance what you believe in, but also you must keep an open heart and open mind, because some of your ideas might not be right either. The importance of engagement then. Youth, leadership, staff, membership regardless of residency. I know many communities that are paralyzed by the on and off reserve dichotomy.
Right.
And we're not. Now, if my membership off reserve want an education, I'll support them. If my membership off reserve, what's the other stuff? Education, want a job, I'll do what I can. But if they want free money, we used to just say, go to Alberta, they give away royalties, we don't. It is against our laws to give away money to our membership. That's not empowerment, that's enablement. I will not govern through dependency. I give people a reason, an opportunity to learn how to live. It's an old saying, give a man a fish, he's hungry tomorrow, teach a man to fish, he's fed for life. Why don't we give our membership the tools to survive? So you'll see how it always there, and this is just me thinking. I don't know how to articulate this in a logical 1, 2, 3, 4 order. I try, but I tend to be a bit all over the map. I did warn you guys in the first slide. So Darlene, thank you. Other questions out there?
Nice to see you, Chief Patrick. We met before the pandemic in Vancouver at the Adaptation Canada, and I found you to be very inspiring. And again, thank you today for sharing so many interesting reflections and thoughts. I guess the thing that is running through my mind is there's a lot of rhetoric around Indigenous sovereignty and nature-based solutions. What are your thoughts on this? Like, we understand that climate change is mitigating greenhouse gases, but it's also about protecting the land. And we're in the midst of a reconciliation moment in our country. And I think you're really showing a lot of leadership here. But this idea around drawdown and carbon sequestration through protecting existing ecosystems as a part of a reconciliation pathway. What do you think about all that?
I must be missing that conversation. I'm not, no, I'm just teasing. So what happens here is, let's break it into your first comment, sovereignty, okay? How many people have read Article 32.2 of DRIPA? Says the state shall get the free, prior, informed consent from the Indigenous populations prior to issuing a land and resource decision. Okay, what is the definition of consent in Canada? So when I posed this question to Minister of Attorney General, Federally Justice, we'll call him Lametti, I asked him, please tell me the meaning of consent. And he said, it's not yes, it's not no, but it's meaningful. Now that's not hypocritical, that's just fucking bullshit. When a man or a woman is approached and asked to do something and they say no, do we respect that? Is there a difference between raping a man and a woman or raping the land and resources? Our governments need to have the courage to give First Nations the ability to say yes or no. They don't. So what happens is they're going to continue to spin their wheels because Victoria and unfortunately Ottawa and other places know best. We also call it paternalism, right? I've been here for 55 years. I don't know how many premiers we've gone through, but I'm still here. So who has continuity? So there's a lot of challenges with the issue of sovereignty. When Douglas declared the colony of 1858, does anybody know Douglas's nationality, the first governor of BC Island mainland colony?
Wasn't he part Black?
Yes, and he was married to a what woman?
First Nations.
Yeah, so think about that. The first governor created laws that recognized Indigenous rights and titles and gave us a path forward and started implementing the Douglas Treaties. He retired in 1866 and was immediately replaced by good old Scottish and English people who decided, screw the Indian. Remember the pimple analogy I gave? So why do you think the governments of today will recognize that? Because they're going to lose. They're going to lose their power. I sent you an article said it's collectively. It's when corporations, governments, Indigenous people work together. And there's 2 levels of government. There's a 3rd level. Municipalities are sort of governed under the Provincial Act. But if the federal and provincial governments and Indigenous people work together with corporations, there will be success. But it comes at the expense of one thing, your bottom line. The question is, I'm designing economies at break-even point or almost 2% return on investment. Whoa, I'm going to make 2% return on my investment, which is better than CPI hurdle, right? But everybody else says, but if I'm not making 20% profit, I'm not doing it. That's that opportunity cost. So how do we switch to break-even point economies? I'm not going to. I approached Minister Ralston when he was the Minister of Jobs, Training and Innovation. And again, I asked him, Minister, we need to We need to manufacture solar panels in BC so that as we advance with electrification and solar panels, at this moment, there are 4 locations, China, Mexico, Turkey, and I've always missed one, that generate. And Minister Ralston said, as my provincial government minister of innovation said, China shall provide. Whoa, holy sheep shit. So I tried to cover up my really negative reaction to that. I said, okay, that's fine. Whew. All right. So BC is not known as a manufacturing hub. Minister, can we subsidize electric vehicle manufacturing in BC, right? So that British Columbia can shift from fossil fuel cars to electrification, and we want to buy BC and we want to buy Canadian. And again, my minister said, Tesla shall supply. What point of holy shit does he not understand? Climate change is going to completely destroy the global systems. China can't supply solar panels if they're flooding, they're burning, they're flooding, or they're involved in civil unrest. I don't understand how people can be so short-sighted. Tesla, well, guess what? The pandemic, can you get proper stuff now? We've already got massive shortages on supply chains. You can't get a car if you don't have an engine for it. So if we were manufacturing our own stuff, and then so now I'm really getting heated up. And then I basically said, well, I still drive a fossil fuel car. Is there any possibility of at least setting up conversion centers? So I drive an old 1992 Ford Focus, and I'd like to switch out the motor for an electric motor. It's called conversion. And he said, no, we're not going to do that either. And I got kicked out after I said, don't call yourself the Minister of Innovation if all you can think about is yesterday. And for some reason, I got the boot, right? Because we try to advocate in the best way, but sometimes shock treatment is the best way. I asked Minister Eby about his definition of consent. BC has adopted DRIPA as law. They still don't recognize consent. I've asked them, please read my articles. If you refuse to recognize Indigenous sovereignty or decision-making, then the future is somewhat inevitable. If you truly cared about a future, wouldn't you sit down and give me a yes and no power today? Sovereignty is a tough one. Now, I have a next thing, much like, what's her name, that lady who wrote Harry Potter. She could not stop thinking about it. So I have another presentation that's cooking up in my mind. It's calling Our Planet, where it's repurpose, recycle, refuse, replant, reclaim. So I was going to create this presentation again, focusing on all the things that we can do, right? Sequestration. So we know that engineering, Harshan, I saw here, Harshan is there. Hi, Harshan. Harshan is like Lily. He had the courage to invite me to do a presentation. And I'm sure that his geoscientists and engineers are still in therapy for it. You know, don't give me a microphone. But the point is that there are solutions out there that are natural-based solutions as well as engineering. Because, for example, we now know that carbon sequestration can work, but it costs trillions of dollars to suck the carbon out of the air. Now, I don't know if that means we're going to suck out methanes and nitrates and the hydrogens, because there's not just carbon isn't the issue when it comes to GHG emissions. There's 4 of them, and some are worse than carbon. So what's the solution for the 4? I don't know. But you know what? At least carbon sequestration is a path forward. I know that these 2 companies that are doing it, they're doing it well. It's just really expensive. I just call it the Hoover system, where we suck the air out of the earth. Then fuck, we dug it out of the ground and burnt it. Let's just put it back in the ground. So that's what carbon sequestration is taking the carbon back out of the air and putting it back underground. Natural sequestration. Let's plant a whole lot of trees. That'll work too. Last I saw, we're still cutting down more trees than we're replanting. So we're losing massive natural sequestration belts. Why can't we plant? Whether it's deciduous, whether it's coniferous, I don't know. But again, from an engineering perspective, carbon sequestration you can actually put it in. You can actually put condensed carbon into cement, for example. So you generate carbon when you produce stuff. Why don't you suck it out? So we'll call it the 2-to-1 principle. For every piece of damage you do 2 pieces of recovery. A lot of different policies can exist. Trudeau announced, billions of trees were going to be planted. Last I seen, nobody was planting around here, except us, right? That's Jana's job. Jana is going to be putting in 300 more trees in the next little while. We've cleared the land for the trees. So the trees will participate. And because they're deciduous, they're going to lose. You'll see the spike on the Bloomberg clock. Are there natural land-based solutions? I think yes, while the impact will be minute, we need to do something, because at the end of the day, you still need a drastic change. You have to quit burning fossil fuels. You have to, you just simply, you need to start adopting the 100-mile diet, accessing your stuff here, because you have to remember, every time you buy something from Walmart, you're buying a shirt that was brought over by a boat. Why aren't you buying Moore's clothing from Quebec? That's at least Canadian made. So the distance, so there, everything has a carbon footprint. Well, are you as a consumer prepared to refuse certain products? So these are the things that are there. And again, because it starts getting so big and you can start getting long, I know there's got to be ways where we can empower every individual British Columbian, regardless of age. Julie has blessed me with Asia, Lucas, and Ryan, and then all three of them, in a roundabout way, are trying to reduce their carbon footprint. You walk to the ballpark or ride to the ballpark. Don't ask mom for a ride to the ballpark. Right? Are you prepared to walk to the 7-Eleven? Are you still going to take a cab or a diesel bus? Oh, wait a minute. Are we still having diesel buses in the city? What's with that? When our governments don't advance electrification, then there's a problem, because it starts looking like hypocrisy, right? I spoke with HVC's part of their decommissioning plan and said, and as well as their GHG emission plans. And all I'm doing is throw down ideas. They have the resources potentially, so they deliver their concentrate from the city of Merritt to Ashcroft in a diesel. They could actually deliver the concentrate by an electrical monorail. It's safer, it's resilient, and of course, it's a GHG saver. Good luck, tech people who were online. I don't know who's all online right now, but there's the potential here. So think about that. It's just a simple idea. I'm not Don Finley, the president of HVC. If they did that, yes, you might lose a couple of people who drive the concentrate, but you actually generate more jobs in the operations and maintenance of the system and the construction of it. So I think it's the sheer size of what needs to be done that scares people. So again, turtle, hide, whatever you want. Natural land-based solutions, they may be a bit of a distraction, and I'm not fully cognizant of all the options that are out there, but I know it's a deflection from what you really need to do. You need to do more. I'll quote Greta, you know what to do. Why aren't you doing it? Are you prepared to make the sacrifices that this high school student said? They were renovating Cumpsheen Secondary School while I was there. And they continued to drive to school under diesel power buses, and they continued to power the school through propane. So even though Canada's hotspot has the greatest amount of sun, there's no solar projects in Lytton. But Stein Valley School recently put it on their school, because if you look at those success stories, let's see if we can create that third wave, which is mitigation and adaptation. Somehow in between the recession and that one thing, and the climate change is coming, let's create a new wave. And that's where Sarah and Viviana and Maxime and Maya and Kate, it's all of us. If you don't believe, you're not going to do it. So, but the problem is, I'm not crazy. I just act like it. I believe it. And the thing here is, are you prepared to be known as the crazy one? Are you going to be the next Greta? Are you going to be the next David Suzuki? You don't need to be. I just need you to be you. I need you to be concerned. The drastic change that is required to give us a chance for a quality of life tomorrow is what's required. Not so much as sovereignty, not so much as natural-based solutions. We just need to unlearn our learned behavior, but we need an alternative. That's who we are as humans. I want to go to Disneyland. You can still go to Disneyland, but now you have to pay $2,000 luxury tax. Get it? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. We all know that climate change is regressive. That'll impact those who have the least. And most of us are on that side. We also know that I do want to go. So I was teasing, I believe it was Lily, that I wanted to go to Hadrian's Wall, and now I don't need to anymore. Why? Because I went to Hadrian's Wall 7 times with Google. I've been to the Statue of Liberty 11 times. With Google Earth, do I really need to travel? No. And what happens is when somebody does travel, I basically ask them to send me a picture. God, I got pictures of the cisterns under Istanbul. I didn't even know they existed because somebody knew me, said, Chief, they're storing water under Istanbul. Oh, that's groovy. I had no idea. So where do you think the idea for the new reservoirs at Kanaka Bar came from? If they've been storing water in Constantinople since time immemorial, for Christ's sake, I think I can put some water on a hill at Kanaka. So it's the incredible sharing of ideas that exist. Bow River communities like Siksika Nation do not have to go without water, but they need to have a water storage plant. So so it's immediately all these ideas that are throwing out. Figure out what's working at Kanaka Bar. Does the concepts apply to your communities? Whether you're in the Skeena, where, again, in the Skeena, the river, I've seen the Skeena. It's warm. What's killing the Fraser is coming for the Skeena, right? I think about Morristown and that jump there. What happens if there's no more spawning salmon? It's coming, but we still have a time. But in many of my presentations and the one I did for Harshan, I talk about the problem is there is lag time and inertia. We are on track. So everybody says, oh, we're going to cap off at 1.5 degrees. Really? We haven't done enough to stop that. Even if we invested the trillions of dollars in sovereignty and natural-based solutions and make drastic change, we're this. I don't know where we're going to start turning like this and like this. Kanaka Bar is saying, the world's predicting, saying we can't have a 2-degree change. Kanaka Bar is already preparing for a 4-degree change. We haven't given up. You prepare for the worst and you hope for the best. Because the thing that pisses me off, people like Trump will still be able to pay $5,000 for a damn grape, while the rest of us will go without grapes. So that 1% who exists in the decision making, I don't know them, but we gave them the power to make decisions for us. And I'm not asking for anarchy. I'm asking people to go out and vote in people who put the needs of British Columbians and Canadians ahead of wallets and industry. I have no idea. I was asking Lily, does anybody know what Extinction Rebellion does? I don't know, other than get in trouble, right? So whether or not we need that type of thing, because it has a backfire. Indigenous sovereignty also will have a backfire. I've told you that I've supported Highland Valley Tech. I've supported ILM's expansion to Hydroline. When I say I speak on behalf of Dory. For those of you who haven't seen it, right? We take our Canadian identity, our British Columbia identity, and our Indigenous identity seriously. We're all in the same boat. The thing is, how do we change the decision makers? So whether it is investing in trees, investing in water storage, investing in SIA, investing in resiliency centers, I've been articulating to the federal and provincial governments, and they get it, they just can't roll it out. So how do we create programs, SERVs, right? I have no idea. But that doesn't mean I'm not willing to have the conversation, but while we're still trying to figure out how to roll out these new policies and programs, we still need to be damn doing something now. Now, I told you that we went to town once a month growing up with my grandmother. How do you think we went to town? You remember the story? We walked. But now people are saying, but I need to be in town 4 times a day. Why? You can't stop me from going to town. I don't need to wear a mask. I want to be able to go have a donut down at Tim Hortons and sit with my buddy, and then I'm not 3 feet apart. Are we prepared for the backlashes that are coming? Is our government prepared to restrict us, to put in climate change measures that stop us from flying, right? That force us to pay $5 a liter. If you're going to drive a fossil fuel car, will you still drive it at $5 a liter? I'll pay it because I don't have an alternative. I've tried to get more electrification. I've tried to get vehicles and stuff. Have I failed? No. But you know what I've done? I've planted the seeds of change. For example, Do you know when I was articulating to the province for the Clean Energy Business Fund, and I thought I seen somebody's name from there. Wouldn't it be nice if the province collected land and water rentals from developers and give some of that back to the Indigenous populations? They said, wouldn't be nice, but it won't happen. I now have a Clean Energy Business Fund. My community pays the province for the privileges of using my traditional territory for a hydro project, and then the province gives me 50% back. Damn Indians applying to the crown for use Indian land and resources, and then they're giving me money back. Plant the seeds of change. Change takes time. Big change is required. I don't know what more I could say about that one topic about sovereignty and natural-based solutions.
I was just wondering, you mentioned about fish farms a while ago to help, like for food security. Have they actually built fish farms already? And I was wondering if it's like an enclosed system, because you always hear about like the open net systems cause like salmon diseases and health concerns for the salmon. So I was wondering, have they built their fish farms already? And what kind of fish farms are they going to build?
Good question. So the fish farm that I first investigated, and so I working a little bit with the Provincial Ministry of Agriculture. They have a concept. So they're enclosed units above ground. And so the very first one I started watching was two young whippersnappers who were in school in Nanaimo who raised steelhead trout and lettuce. So I can't remember, I think they're producing about 15,000 pounds a month in steelhead trout and also the lettuce that feeds the region. So they're using it as a true economic development vehicle. And if you watch their videos, it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, okay? Then there's this group down in just around Chilliwack where they're raising coho. Again, and it's been in operation for 15 years. So coho achieved a maturity like steelhead, I think, in 2 years. So it doesn't take too long to get it. If your value position is sockeye and or Chinook, but it takes a long time. So at Kanaka Bar, we're thinking about investing. So all we're doing is we're going to, once we're allowed to by Minister Mike Farnworth, we're going to drive down, we're going to whip out this little device, it's called a smartphone, and we're going to take a picture and we're going to steal their aquaculture ideas. Or more importantly, how about we just hire the guy who did it right the first time to do it with us the second time? And so we've talked to them. They want the same thing we want. They broke the adoption curve. They know the water temperature. They know the water quality. They know the food. They know how to keep these things alive, and they're all closed loop systems. That means fish on the bottom, fruits and vegetables on the top. It'll work. The question is, do we do them in greenhouses or do we do them in shipping containers or other fixed structures? So we were just going to do it in a temporary structure because of the extreme weather events. We all have to start moving towards really strong fixed structures. Wind will blow your stuff away. Rain will wash your stuff away. So why wouldn't you make a permanent structure? My ancestors lived in a hole in the ground with 4-foot walls. Today they call it passive homes, right? I'm just saying, so somebody stole my original living idea, called it passive homes, and probably marketing it through Britco and Lordco and all those guys, I don't know. It works. There are support groups out there I've spoken to, and I don't know if anybody from DFO was on, because I said that I was asking DFO federally, because obviously they know what's coming in terms of the salmon species for the Fraser and other ones that are coming through, to please work internally to start developing a massive aquaculture project. Because with aquaculture, we will be able to repair the Fraser River and the other river watershed systems over the course of 300 years, but we still need a species to reintroduce. So with aquaculture, we can keep the species alive because we're not planning enhancement at Kanaka Bar. I have an idea. Let's release 350,000 babies into a pot of boiling acid and see what happens. Yeah, we know what's going to happen. The system is now toxic, but there's money for salmon enhancement, where you raise fish and put them back into the system, the very system that will kill them. So we have completed an enhancement report. Sean is supervising the finalization of our state condition of the Fraser River report. That'll be available. Everything we've done, death by 1,000 cuts. Tell me one community that has stopped at least one of their cuts. Yeah. We haven't made the sacrifices that are necessary to get us ready for tomorrow, and I don't know when we're going to get there. But you know what? Continue to work together. So that is an excellent mid-Skeena. And I sat down here on the edge of the Skeena. Just so you guys know, we took a team from Lytton up to the big tournament up in Prince Rupert. And not bad for a team of kids. We took 5th place last time just before the competition. And that's not bad for a bunch of kids who believe in themselves. We took on some of the best teams from BC, from Alaska, and we took 5th place. I can tell you, when Lytton is finished with you, even if you beat us, you will lose the next game in hockey, in baseball, in basketball, because we play hard, we play clean. But damn it, no such thing as goddamn zone in my world. It's man to man from start to finish. And I hope you have the stamina that my kids do, because I whip it into them. They're running to the tops of the mountains. They're running to the bottoms of the valleys. You think a little running around the basketball court's going to hurt them? So the thing here is, we talk about this. I've barely seen British Columbia, but what I've also seen at British Columbia is starting to struggle. How do we give hope to Williams Lake in the fires and flooding? How do we give, I don't know. I know that when Trudeau, when I give an example, you find a way out, optimism. Trudeau had legalized marijuana, correct? Everybody remembers that? You know what Kanaka Bar said? Canada gave them the munchies, we're gonna feed them. Remember the economy of tomorrow? You always find a light at the silver tunnel. I don't have the technology to do carbon sequestration, but I do have a land base that can host trees. Sean is up here taking pictures. He's seeing areas where we can actually go in and replant the areas that were logged because they were never planted before. But who's going to supply the trees? Well, if I have cleared lands and I have water and I have sun, Sean, can we not produce our own trees that are acclimatized? Just means somebody has to go pick up the pine cones and then plant them. I don't need Trudeau's dollars. I don't need the Minister of Forest permission. If I'm going to replant my traditional territory, they can, how did I say, how have I said it a lot of times? Help me or stay out of my way because I'm going to do it anyway. Right? I'm just saying. You know, have you guys heard I'm building a reservoir? Do you think I need a permit to build a reservoir? I don't know. I don't have one. I'm building one. Don't rat me out to the province. But Deputy Minister Rick Van Waring said, aren't you the guy that says you might want to issue the permit before I finish my next project? Is that sovereignty? When we actually implement title? And if you follow that ask system, you can't do it just willy-nilly. You must do it right. If you take it in, do what you need. If you take it in, take it out. And when you're finished, clean up after yourself. I'm still implementing the original ask system. What's funny though, is I'm asking myself, is it okay to put a reservoir in? So I asked myself, so as staff, I says, Chief, can we put in a reservoir? Chief says, sure, let's see what the membership says. So me, myself, and I says, as membership, I'm thinking, sure. I'm just saying that there's a small me, myself, and I issue. That's why you avoid it by engaging the membership in. The membership have given council permission to advance physiological certainty. It's our job as leadership is to find the resources to complete them.
I am just so inspired right now. And I know that we spoke via email on a resiliency project that I'm working on. I'm employed by Tech Highland Valley Copper. I live in Logan Lake on the unceded territory of the Nlaka'pamux Nation. And yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how do I, as an advocate and an ally, replicate the work you've done and facilitate that from the place of privilege that I work at. I have a resource at my hands because I work for a large company. So how do I take that? And how do I take all the work that you've done? You've invented the wheel. And I'm trying to find where those those two intersect in my mind. But you've, my brain's kind of on fire right now.
And the answer is easy. No matter who we are, we're a collective humanity, and corporations are part of our humanity. They're just a construct. But Don Finley is a man, and he's got kids and grandkids. He's got shareholders he's accountable to. But you'll start finding now that financial institutions, all this sort of stuff, they'll be looking at stuff called ESGs and stuff like this. If corporations are industry leaders in climate change, adaptation, and mitigation, and have set aside philanthropy to advance projects, that's fantastic. But when you have overburden on the mine site, why don't you plant it? Why don't you put up fences? Why don't you raise Chewbacca the alpaca? Or alternatively, Cusco the llama, right? And if that's not working, throw a couple of goats in that bad boy. Those things tip over when they're scared. So every time a rock truck goes by, you'll have a bunch of fainting goats. I'll watch that video at least 17 times if it gets posted, okay? But you have the same land and resources. Corporations still are owners. They own land and resources, and they have staff, and they have internal staff. It would look good, right? Right? We'll be able to get better money. We'll be able to continue to get money. If financial institutions across the world stop financing certain things, how are these people going to continue? So corporations have a vested interest. How can I make money off of it? The thing is, you need to be able to start taking, but how long do you want to make money? Are the directors and owners and the executive directors and the directors responsible to generate profits today, or to generate sustainable profits for a long time? Because Don Finley can be changed out. Directors can be changed out. And I'm not picking on HVC. I'm talking about Aspen Planers. I'm talking about McDonald's, right? We see the transition in so many different ways. We're sourcing local materials. So somehow, how do we articulate that we're collectively in this together, and corporations, the quadruple win? If you have land and you have water and you have sun and have wind, why aren't you investing as an owner, as a corporation, in those first projects to help British Columbians and Canadians and the world break the adoption fear and change management fear? We need solar projects in downtown Merritt. We need solar projects. Now I'm talking big ass bad boys in your face on Battle Street, Kamloops. I need John Kenny over there. Oh, wait, he's already did it. He comes to me, he says, John, do you have solar? Not now. A couple of months later, I do now. Way to go, John. Let's get the infection going. Why aren't British Columbians? For example, did you know that if you put a solar project on your fee simple land, you will change its assessed value and you increase your capital gains by $75,000 at a minimum. $14,000 you pay nothing, right? And when you flip your house, which is what everybody's doing, you can get an additional $75,000 over and above your asking price because you're already solar ready. Easy, that's why I say, look. So because people are still addicted to yesterday's status quo and bottom line, all we can do as advocates, regardless of where we are on whether you're the floor sweeper in a mine, whether you are the Indigenous relations person at Aspen Planers, whether you are, the person who answers the phone, hey, right? Whatever, Carol Burnett skit. We all have the ability to influence our decision makers, corporate, school districts, restaurants. And why are we still, it's a pollutant thing. It's not necessarily a climate change thing, but the amount of plastics. I'm just signed on for a plastics thing coming up in a couple of weeks, repurposing plastic. We're still using plastic? Whatever happened to refuse? I'd like to have my orange in my hand, please. I don't need a plastic bag. I don't need a paper bag. I don't need a sack bag. Well, I could probably get a sack bag, right? Buy one of these bad boys. Team, conversation, but it has to make sense. It's not innovative to roll out solar projects in your town, your community region. It is not innovative to roll out wind or store water or small hydro projects. So the thing is, change management. How much is it going to cost? Well, how much are you going to benefit from it? If you become a global leader in climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies, that's money in the bank, because the bank might not give you money alternatively. I'd like to see which banks are currently funding pipelines. I hear a lot of these stories about banks cutting off. But at the same time, don't we subsidize certain industries in Canada? How much subsidy is there for independent power producers? And I don't see them on here. Anybody know the answer? John, how much subsidy is there for independent power producers in BC?
Subsidy? I don't think there are any subsidies. I don't think there are really any opportunities for IPPs anymore, Chief.
So more to work on.
But so they don't even have the chance to compete fairly with Site C and BC Hydro.
Yeah, and this is the challenge. So what happens is our government has put all its egg baskets into Site C at the expense of a lot of relationships. We've been articulating for 10 or 12 years that people like Sarah and Charlene and Brennan and Lily and Bob and Elizabeth and Elkin need to be able an opportunity to present. Do you have a resilient future? Smaller scale diversification is how you're going to be resilient. We're still addicted to go big or go home. So how does it? By the way, Patricia Rojas over there has, yeah, right? So she's the young lady that I've spoken to. So we advocate. And so we're saying smaller scale and diversification resiliency centers. If Kanaka Bar gets our resiliency centers up and running, we will either have federal and provincial government support or we will have not. But you will now know what a resiliency center looks like. I know that Lily someday is going to leave from Slocan and she's going to drive over here and she can spend the extra 3 hours in her electric vehicle going out of her way. I says, but I know at the end of my tunnel, there's a battery powered charging station. So with that awareness, that you can still travel, walk, put something on your dog, take a bike, take a horse, right? I'm not going to ride no horse. I tried 3 times. Say, 3 times is a charm. 4th time, he ain't getting me bucked off another horse in my life. But again, I digress. Create these resiliency centers everywhere. Talk to your owners, talk to your corporations, because there's not a lot of time left. Now, John introduced me to a term, and Harshan had also mentioned it too in his presentation. How do we future-proof? Do you have an obligation to tell your boss that your product and or service and your infrastructure is at risk from rain, forest fire, wind, right? Or other extreme weather event? So you frame it the conversation that way. Boss, I just finished this conversation. There's this crazy guy in the middle of freaking nowhere. He took off his back jacket and put on a red shirt. And he's no longer a caveman in these modern times. He actually unveiled himself as somebody who might actually know what he's talking about, but doesn't really. But I digress again. He said, your product, your service, your infrastructure is at risk. I'm thinking if we just steal some of his ideas, we can protect it. But at the same time, man, can we engage spin doctors to say, my name is insert name of company here. I believe climate change is real. I'm investing in protecting my assets so that my employees have a place to go to in an event. That my employees are the most important thing that ever. Not what happens is, but of course, in the boardrooms, the doors closed. He's going to tell his shareholders, by investing in resiliency, I will guarantee you profits tomorrow. It might not be 14% dividend, but I can still get you 8. When everybody else is bankrupt, you're getting 8% dividends. Just give me the budget to roll out wind, solar, hydro, and SIAs, and goats and alpacas on my overburden, on my right-of-ways, in the back of my property that I've been hoarding to use for the next 75 years, but never got around to. For God's sakes, there's so much underutilized land in BC, it just blows me away. If you put in a corn crop, and then you finally decide to expand, just stop growing corn on it. Kind of looks like Chilliwack, right? It's really funny that we're getting rid of our entire green for condos. Again, that's my pick. Remember when Chilliwack was known as the green heart of British Columbia? They took that sign down and said condos for sale. Where the hell are we going to grow our corn then? If Chilliwack is all converted into condos, what do we value? So rephrase the conversation, Charlene, in terms of way down here. Pitch it as resiliency, strategic investment is not a cost, right? That you can pitch this success story in the local paper globally. Zen and John and Jana and my council and everybody, we work hard to try to make a presentation that's reasonable, makes sense, and feasible, and also affordable. So I often, if you look at the presentations, as more people are dictating what are called tangible returns, and your turn again, tell me the difference between what is tangible, what is intangible, and why are they different?
Well, intangibles are things that you can't see. Intangibles are things that you could see. Why are they different? Well, I guess people often see what they can see and just make decisions based on that. And things that are often more important are intangibles, in my view.
One of the videos I say, can you quantify a smile? When you empower people and you give them back self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-identity, why would you even try to attribute some sort of quantifiable, a dollar value to that? When we empower ourselves and our children and our grandchildren and the people around us, that's priceless. And so at the end of the day, so we measure success, and it's really tricky because I have no idea. I know Don Findlay. I walked past him and I said one time, and I was doing a presentation, and it was called Why First Nations Say No. And I heard Highland Valley was having a wine and cheese party. Well, I don't drink, but I went over there and said, you can call me anything you want, just don't call me late for the buffet table. So they introduced me. So this is Robin Sidsworth. He's the lawyer for Highland Valley Tech. And this is the like really bossy guy, Don Findlay. I said, hey, great. Thanks for the shindig. And went over and ate all this cheese and grapes. Right? Never thought to actually ask him to build a toilet at the time because the toilet didn't exist. Right? Patrick's Potty, Must Stop, Rest Stop, and Oasis in the Canyon, also known as a resiliency center. I don't know if I'm going to secure the funding for that, but I know that John, Zen, I, Julia, Sean will make it happen. And what happens is you can keep throwing these guys into the, why is it going to happen? Because they believe. Isn't that what the why is about? If they believe. If you don't believe, then maybe you shouldn't be in the industry you're in. Can we do something to make a change? Absolutely. And I believe it from every inch, from the day I was born to the day I die. I know that what I say or do matters. I'm very cautious about what I say or do, because I also know that there's a lot of people in this world whose hearts and minds are not well. And so my expression is that with 100 words, I can build you up. With one word, I can destroy you. It's really easy to be a destroyer. So I just try to make a conscious decision not to do that. And you know what? I value so much the people I've met, whether it's Patricia or Anna Brace, who was on earlier, my new meeting with Darlene, each and every one of you. And that's what I mean by quid pro quo, has already changed me today. And in this event here, I'm just going to think, you know, with 16 people left, let's get the segue out. It's an incredibly tough life. The pandemic is here, it's real. Look after yourself, practice your social distancing, wear your mask. If you don't have to travel, please don't. But groceries and other stuff is really important. But if you do travel, stay in your bubble. And for God's sakes, if you get a chance to get the vaccine, take it. You don't want to get it. You don't want to take it home. And please, please do not wish this pandemic on anybody else. My community survived how many? My village site that I spoke about was for 2,000 people. There's only 200 of us left. What happened? Pandemic. We were wiped out after contact, not by the frickin' war, but the goddamn diseases that were brought here. So I'm pretty sensitive over the pandemic, just so you guys know. And the hardest part though is in a pandemic, we come together in a crisis, but in a pandemic, you have to stay apart. And that's probably been the hardest part, is the isolation and the loneliness from staying apart. I'm very fortunate to have seen Zen once in the last 14 months. John, I'm not too sure when we last met, but 14 months without John and Zen, meeting John and Zen, these are the heartbeats of my community. These are the mentors and stuff like this. We can hardly wait for the pandemic to allow everybody to come back into the room, because it is through true mentoring and capacity development occurs when we interact. It's not the same virtually, because it's the best I can say.
I was just going to say thank you so much. As Lily was saying, it's so rare to have somebody as incredibly prepared as you are to have come in and said, I'm going to do a 1-hour presentation. And at the 1-hour mark, exactly, you were done with this incredible slide deck of really inspiring information. And to think that you came in at this point in time where we are facing so many walls, so much isolation, so much sense that we're just tired of hoping, tired of all the no's that we continually hear, to come in and to tell us that it's time to find our people and to band together, and that there is a way to go forward with persistence and with dignity, is something that I think we all needed to hear. So I just want to, from the standpoint of all of us here and the organizers and the people who had to leave due to other meetings, just say thank you so much for all your wisdom, for all your care, for all your effort and energy. And I think that this has been truly a tremendous, tremendous opportunity for all of us to hear from you today. Thank you.
Be well. Thank you again for your commitment of time. Remember, the gift of life is the power of choice, time. 2.5 hours we've spent together is really, really meaningful to me. And so, as Sarah said, together we will be okay. Perseverance, overcome, but we do need to do it together. We'll never be able to do it apart. Community living globally, yeah, let's do it.